Hello, everyone. I'm Andy.
Yeah, and I'm Mark.
This is Strange Stuff Podcast and round 2 of Maddie McCann. Ding, ding.
What is that? A boxing match between you and me, you mean?
Yes, because we're going to argue every fucking sentence.
I just need to put your volume up. Hang on. Say, yeah, I think I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, that was the week that was. Anything interesting happen? Stupid question.
Well, you know, it's all going off. Trump has sort of delayed his tariff activity against Canadians. Hats off to the Canadians. I'll tell you what, it didn't take them long to respond, on a national level, removing stuff from the shelves. And there was something that was reported in Sweden where they're trying to encourage Swedish people to, American goods.
Well, funnily enough, I was at lunch yesterday with...
At McDonald's?
No, but with Teresa and Robin. We invited Robin along because it's our last Friday lunch, me and Teresa.
Yeah.
And we went to Viking Pizza Place.
All right.
And Robin has just received his first ever Amex card.
All right.
And he tried to pay for his pizza with his Amex. And they said, we don't take Amex. And anyway, we're going to boycott the US, basically, from now on. Yeah. So Robin said, I suppose it's pointless me asking for a Coke then. I said, for fuck's sake, they're going to spit on my pizza if you carry on.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's sort of, that's what's required, grassroots response.
No, they have shown some big cojones, the Canadians, and hats off to them. They're quite right.
Yeah.
Why should you? Because some fucking insane dictator decides that he wants you as a 51st state, and if you're not going to join, then he's going to tax you out of existence. Well, fuck off.
Yeah. But, luckily, the first cracks in the relationship between Musk and Trump have sort of started now. I mean, I don't know how long they've been buddies.
Not long, because if you remember, in the run-up to his first term, he hated Elon Musk.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he did. Well, because they had this bust-up when Trump had all his secretaries of state, and Trump had to say that, no, it's the secretaries in charge of these things and not Elon Musk. And that obviously didn't go down well with Elon. In fact, I'm sure he's going to say something, but I haven't seen anything. But it must be, did we cover it last week? I mean, just ludicrously stupid errors that his team have made. I mean, publishing lists of savings on the website. Did we talk about that last week? I think it happened this week.
We have spoken about the savings.
Did we talk about the 8 billion saving?
Oh, there's many billions, but all the savings that have been made are basically being funneled into Elon's companies.
Well, very probably. But the 8 billion, which was at the top of the list, turned out to be 8 million. So, he's just...
Well, it's just a typo.
A small typo. You can type 3 zeros easily by mistake. So anyway, that relationship clearly is going to head south. And unfortunately for Elon, we know that once anybody falls out with Trump, they either end up in prison or bankrupt or in court. Yeah, it is pretty crazy, absolutely crazy.
I mean, I'm wondering what's happened to these alleged astronauts that have been stuck in space since June last year.
I think they're back, aren't they?
No, apparently
they're
not.
Still up there.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, if we're talking about sending people to the moon and putting people on Mars, how the fuck can we not get 2 people down from Earth's orbit?
Well, the thing is that Musk is the sort of fellow also who might say, well, I'm not going to rescue them.
No, he
And so-
wanted to, but they said, fuck off, we want to come back alive.
Well, actually, didn't one of his rockets blow up the other day?
Two of his last two launches have resulted in 100% failure rate, which is not surprising for anyone who actually looks at what he's doing.
Yeah. So, that's sort of going on in the background. But the fact that obviously what's happening is that Trump's own, the Republicans are saying, hang on, Donny, you got to tone it down a bit because our popularity ratings are going down fast.
I mean, it's the first time in the history of the internet where you can go onto Facebook and just type, he's a complete fucking idiot, and you don't even have to say who you're talking about. 99% of the world knows exactly who you're talking about.
I saw that exactly. He's a complete fucking idiot, and everybody knows who you're talking about.
Anyway, I want to press on.
What?
I have to, because otherwise we're going to make this a three-parter, and I don't want to go down that road.
No, I definitely don't want to.
So
listen to your bollocks for another week.
We're going to let you keep your unpopular and solo opinions about Trump to yourself.
Oh, I see. Yes, you're right about Trump.
We're going to go straight into your unpopular and solo opinions about Maddie McCann. So last week, where we ended up was how he basically didn't get prosecuted for the torture and rape of the old lady.
Who are we talking about now? The German fellow?
Christian B. Or yes. Christian. Yeah, it's Christian B. Bruckner. Yeah, I almost said Christian F., which was a very good film starring David Bowie. But we won't go there.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Well, it wasn't actually starring David Bowie. It was about a young German couple, a boy and a girl whose, I think it was her ambition to see David Bowie play live. Uh-huh. They were street kids, ended up on heroin and a little bit of prostitution.
Nice.
It was a great film.
All right, so hang on a second. What are you talking about now? This German fellow wasn't prosecuted for the rape. He
wasn't prosecuted for the rape and torture of the older lady because I think she was 78. Because there was a lack of evidence. But he would end up serving another 9-month jail term on the Algarve when him and his friend were caught stealing diesel from a marina in Portugal.
So, sorry, this fellow, he's in prison now, isn't he, this fellow?
Yes, I think he is.
And so are you saying that he's in prison never having been convicted of a sexual offence?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Oh, I see. So we agree he's in prison because he's a sexual deviant.
He's a known and convicted paedophile and sex offender.
All right. No, because you keep talking about stealing diesel, him being in prison for stealing diesel.
That's why he was in prison for this particular sentence, and he served 258 days.
All right.
And he completed that sentence just before Madeleine McCann disappeared.
Oh, I see. So this was before Madeleine McCann disappeared.
Yes, we're still in the pre-disappearance days of his history.
All right. So where was he when she disappeared?
I'm just about to tell you.
Oh, all right.
So May the 3rd, 2007, which was the date that she actually disappeared from the Praia de Luz resort.
Yes.
Bruckner was known to have been in the local area at the time she went missing, and investigators would later prove his whereabouts by examining phone records that revealed he was near the McCann's holiday apartment an hour before the child vanished. Now, that's pretty unspecific.
Well,
I see your point. Oh, he was near there, therefore it must have been him. I don't like the word near. I'm not saying
it must have been him because of that. I'm saying he's worth investigating. If a known
and they did investigate him,
child abductor,
and they did investigate him, and they've been investigating him relentlessly for the last 5 years, and still coming up with nothing. So all I'm saying is that someone being near, I don't know how near they're talking about. It could have been 5 miles, it could have been 10 miles, it could have been in the same country. I don't know.
Don't be ridiculous. I mean, if they say he was in the locality, that doesn't mean he's in Portugal.
They didn't say the locality. They said near. I mean, I'm near the space station.
Yeah, but using phone records, you can get within 100 meters of something.
Yes, but then I would like to know why they didn't say within 100 meters. They said near. And
Yeah.
that could mean anything. That's so ambiguous.
Yeah, but the point is that they're not going to pursue the prosecution of someone if he was in Portugal 300 kilometres away from the site. Obviously, they're going to pursue investigating him if it was a possibility that he did actually abduct her.
Yes,
evidenced
I'm not
by the
arguing
phone
that.
records.
I'm just arguing the fact that they're being very ambiguous about why or on what they're basing their information on. If you're going to pinpoint someone to within 100 meters of a crime, say it's 100 meters.
Yes.
Don't say it's near, because near doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but so what you, anyway, whatever, carry on. I mean, so we got a convicted paedophile near, could have been in Portugal as far as you're concerned. I reckon I read that as something more meaningful.
Yes, and you're supposed to. That's why they use words like near, so that you will infer the reality in your head that he was right next door.
No, but it's nothing to do with what I think. It's whether it justified a police investigation. And wasn't it the German...
We've already established that the police investigation was fucked up from the word go.
No, hang on a second. Wasn't it the German police who said they've got concrete evidence that this fellow is guilty?
Which they obviously haven't, because it's never been presented.
But why would they say it?
But they've said, people say shit all the time. I've told you last week about them digging up every basement and every cellar that he's ever in every place that he's ever lived, and they come up with nothing. The time. Carry on,
because I don't want to delay this story any further.
You've already done it. You've already set us back 10 minutes.
No, but it's my job to at least give some sort of balance to it. I mean, you're the one who said you were convinced that it was the parents that did it within 2 minutes of starting the podcast.
I was just laying out my picnic, letting you know what I'm having for lunch.
Okay. All right. So this fellow Bruckner's innocent, is what you're saying?
I'm saying that they cannot prove that he had anything to do with it at all. And after 5 years of investigation, they should have turned up something. Otherwise,
on the same basis,
money.
They were investigating the parents for 10 years, for 20 years in the media, and they haven't turned up anything.
They didn't investigate the parents for 10 years. They closed the case on them after 4 or 5 years.
What do you mean books have been written about it, for God's sake? Anyway, carry on. I know you're annoyed when I apply logic, reason and evidence.
There is no logic, reason, and certainly no evidence. The only evidence is my gut feeling.
Exactly. Yeah, we know where that takes you. Carry on.
Okay. Now, at the time that he
Hang on. No, carry on.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. What time? What time? How do you know it was that time? Now, at the time that he was near the apartment, local police believed that he was selling drugs at rave parties held by teenagers, which would be in the area. A witness would later come forward in June 2020 to claim that she recognised Bruckner from a photograph during a police appeal and said that the German paedophile went by a different name back then. During a Portuguese TV interview, the woman said she also recognised the Volkswagen camper van that police had seized from him and they were using as part of their appeal. The young girls that he sold drugs to were minors and under the legal age of consent. I don't know what they were doing at rave parties, and I don't know what the legal age of consent is in Portugal. But he gave the girls weed and other things they wanted, she said, and in exchange they gave him sex because they didn't have the money to pay for the drugs.
That's pretty horrible.
That was just the way they did things, she said. The witness also remembers Bruckner from parties held on a farm in Barão de São João, which is located near the town of Lagos, not Nigeria, where he would occasionally work as a bartender. Bruckner would have been about 30 at the time that he attended these parties, which was around the same time that Maddie went missing. The witness added that the German suspect spoke good English but had a reserved manner and was most often accompanied by another unknown man. She recalls this other man looked similar in appearance to Bruckner, and she suspected he was a Brit, as the two men always spoke English together. I thought the other man was a brother or a friend, she said, Both were tall and both were blonde-haired. One had blue eyes and the other had green eyes. I thought both of them were English until I found out now that one of them was German.
It's amazing how people... This is from an eyewitness drugged teenager.
Yes.
Who sold herself for drugs.
Well, that's a harsh way of putting it, but...
Well, I think that's what you said.
Isn't
it amazing that she's able to recall their eye colours?
That's exactly what I was going to bring up next, because eyewitness testimony is so unreliable, especially 15 years after the fact. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't think I could remember my ex-wife's eye colour, and I lived with her for 30 years. I would hazard a guess, but...
I can't even recall her name.
What colour eyes does Hannah have?
Just like her daddy. Sexy blue.
Hannah's got blue eyes, does she?
I hope so, now I've said it.
Yes, you're right. Confident. You said it confidently as well.
Yeah, well, yeah. Fake it till you make it.
All right, so we got eyewitness accounts, strange goings on. He's in the area.
With his buddy who looks exactly like him. I mean, it could be that she was so high she was seeing double.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on. Yeah.
She said, I immediately knew the new Maddie McCann suspect was him when I saw the camper van on TV. It was the one he used. See, again, 15 years after the fact, she recognised a camper van. The last time I saw him was in 2007, shortly before Madeleine vanished. The camper van in question was being sought by police as part of their inquiries, along with another vehicle owned by Bruckner. Shortly after the disappearance of Maddie McCann, Bruckner moved back to Germany, where he lived in various different places, including Dresden, Augsburg, and in a caravan in Hanover. Now, this is a strange one, a Jaguar XJR6.
XJR6?
Yes. This is a bit different from a camper van.
Fast car.
Previously owned by him, was registered to a new owner the day after Madeleine went missing. Registration was then taken on by Alexander Bischoff, who would later come forward to say that Bruckner had stayed with him when he left Portugal. Mr. Bischoff, a landlord who lives in Augsburg, near Munich, was visited by Bruckner shortly after the 3-year-old vanished, and he told him that he left Portugal to start a new life, was between jobs, had no money, and also missed his English girlfriend. Mr. Bischoff was asked to help him by a mutual acquaintance, and Bruckner lived in his dilapidated attic for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
But, sorry, obviously this fellow... If the title was transferred the day after, I don't know if it's automated in Germany, I don't know if it's digital, does that mean he sold the car the day after Madeleine disappeared?
It appears that way. It was actually registered to the new owner the day after the disappearance, which to me says that it must have been sold before, because registration of a vehicle must take 5-6 days.
Yeah.
It's done by post. There's no getting around it.
Well, it's not in Sweden, but anyway.
Oh, you do have to send in a registration document. You do. You get 2 pieces.
No, I know, but you don't understand. There is an app. You do it all on app.
Well, I'm clearly not very up to date with computers.
What do you mean? You're just not used to transferring ownership of vehicles, which I have done recently. I don't own
vehicles. I just lease them.
Thank you. So I'm right, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that you may have more substance, in fact.
All right, so hang on a second. Where are we going with this German bloke then? Because everything at the moment is pretty...
It is pretty thin pickings. Now, the landlord
I was wondering what the relevance of the Jag is. The Jag.
We're coming to it. The landlord said he was shocked when police came to ask him about Madeleine. Mr. Bischoff said, he was always a little nervous. He just couldn't hold down a job, and I tried to encourage him to do so. He said he grew up in an orphanage and never mentioned any family. He never really stayed in one place. He only talked about his girlfriend, Maria. I think she was English and working in Portugal. He added that the two men both shared a passion for Jaguar vehicles, and he agreed to take on the registration of Bruckner's XJR6. He told police he later asked Bruckner to leave his home after realising he was mixed up with drugs. Sometime after he left, German police arrived to search the attic, mentioning Maddie and a murder. Bischoff said he never spoke a word about such things. We never talked about children. Our talks were always about dealing with cars, football and Portugal.
Sorry,
stuff.
When was this, Andy?
This was shortly after the disappearance.
So hang on a second, what? So you mean that this fellow was on the radar back in 2007?
No, hang on. No, they came to talk to him years later, the landlord, when they were tracking his movements after he left Portugal.
Right. So it wasn't contemporaneous with the events. It was just several years later.
He told detectives, who he said were fixated on the Jag, that Bruckner had hitched it up to his camper van and driven to North Germany. He also revealed how he had returned from Portugal with expensive things, such as a very expensive camera, a laptop, a Rolex, and was even in possession of a Breitling watch. He was trying to sell them, Bischoff said, but I started to realise that he was stealing while working in his jobs in the hotels there. He also soon realised that his tenant was using his roof to dry out marijuana that he was selling. He was proud he had dreamed up a way to dry it on the roof because of the heat. He was selling it and making money. With his wife also showing an instant dislike to Bruckner, the two men eventually fell out and Bischoff asked him to leave. Several weeks later, he said he wrote Bruckner a letter. I tried one more time to get him on the right path, he said. I said it was only a matter of time before he would end up in the jailhouse and that he needed to sort out his ways. I never heard from him again.
So, is this fellow Bruckner, is he a known burglar, thief?
Yes. We covered it in the last episode that he was stealing from hotels and apartments.
All right, so that's where he got the expensive watches from.
Yeah, but I mean, who takes a Breitling on holiday with them and leaves it in the apartment when they go out? What's the point? Leave it at home if you don't want to know what the time is. Mind you, having said that, I lost a Cartier in Cuba.
Did you?
Yeah.
What were the circumstances? Were you in a brothel?
I just had it serviced. No, I was not in a brothel. I just had it serviced before I went. And I went cave diving with my mate Matt from Australia. And while we were cave diving, it fucking leaked. We were only 10 meters down. It was supposed to be waterproof to 30. So because it leaked, it stopped working. So I just put it in my hand luggage. And of course, by the time I got back from to Heathrow from Cuba, the hand luggage was pretty well rifled and my watch was gone.
Some would question the logic of using it. What was it? A Cartier what? Tank watch?
It was a Pantera, I think.
That's not a sports watch. That's a dress watch.
Yeah, it was a dress watch, but it was waterproof. I mean, I never took it off. It was like this one. I never take it off. It's like in the shower, in the bath, swimming, in the sea. It's not a problem. It's a watch. It's supposed to be a utility thing.
Yeah, but you don't go diving with a bloody dress watch. Who are you hoping to meet down there? Prince Charles or something?
Fucking Aquawoman. What happens if a mermaid decides to chat me up?
You need to impress her with your
Cartier
Cartier watch.
If there's two of us diving, I want her to see the bling. I'm getting me some of that fish tail. I'm getting me some of that fish tail.
So this fellow Bruckner's a wrong un.
Yes.
He's been trying to steer right by his landlord, who eventually gave up.
Landlord finally gave up on him and never heard from him again. And it was around that time that Bruckner was known to have bought various amounts of marijuana and hashish in order to start a large-scale drug operation. which was reportedly purchased by a middleman, not a middle-aged man, on the northern German island of Sylt, where it was then sold on. Meanwhile, the investigation in Portugal began to focus on any potential suspects. In September 2007, Kate and Jerry, the parents, were made arguidos, formal suspects by the Portuguese police in their daughter's disappearance. The first indication that public opinion was turning against the McCanns was in June of that year, when a German journalist asked the couple whether they were actually involved in the disappearance.
That's right, yeah. I mean, I remember the not social media in those days, but the media turning against the McCanns, for sure.
Yeah. One of the first prime suspects in the case, as we said last week, was Robert Murat. However, that investigation failed to establish a link.
That was the British property developer who lived with his mum.
Yes.
Right.
But they failed to establish a link between the McCanns or Murat to the disappearance. In July 2008, police halted their investigation, so they only investigated the McCanns for a year before lifting the arguidos status of the McCanns and Murat, effectively closing the case. As Bruckner,
against the McCanns?
Yes.
Yeah. They carried on searching because have the British police arrived yet?
They're still searching. They're still pouring money down this black hole. As Bruckner lived a transient existence, travelling about Germany, rarely staying in one place for too long, the investigation in Madeleine's disappearance began to gather pace in 2011, specifically in England. In May of that year, the Operation Grange Review was launched following a request to Scotland Yard from the then Home Secretary, Theresa May, with the support of the then Prime Minister, David Cameron. Remember that idiot?
I do. Your mate. Brexit mate.
He was the Brexit liar, wasn't he?
Wasn't he the one that initiated it all? Wasn't he the one that called for the referendum?
He promised that he would give a referendum if what was the circumstances?
I can't remember.
And then he said he would stay on when he lost the Prime Minister battle. He said he would stay on as an MP and resign the very next day. And no one's heard from him since.
Oh, he became the editor of the Evening Standard, didn't he?
Oh, what a great job that is. Isn't that?
Anyway, forget all that. I want to get onto this thing so I can put you in your place with your
Hasn't
gut
the Evening
feeling
Standard
theories.
gone under now? Does it no longer have a physical edition?
I don't know. I
remember
I used to buy one every day.
That somewhere.
Oh,
I might be wrong, but it's not often.
You often are.
As we know. Not often. Not often. The same year, 2011, Bruckner is arrested and charged with trafficking narcotics and is sentenced to a district court in Nibel. Oh, God.
Does it matter? Schleswig-Holstein.
Yes, Schleswig-Holstein, like the beer, in northern Germany, to a 21-month prison sentence, which was initially suspended. In December 2012, he opened a kiosk in Braunschweig in northwest Germany, where German media claim he continued with his illegal drug activities and hosted drug parties.
Why is this relevant to him being accused of abducting Madeleine McCann?
Well, you will have to wait and see.
He's a convicted drug dealer, but that, I don't think...
He's had some sexual offences in the past. Remember the young girls?
Oh, actually, that's a very good point, that he was exchanging drugs for sex with these underage girls.
And last week we spoke about some even younger girls. But you'll have to listen to that if you want a reminder.
I should do, just to check that my words haven't been edited out. My contributions haven't been edited out.
I'm getting messages one after the other here. Oh, it's my brother.
Well, tell him to shut up. You're podcasting.
Recording.
I never take calls during recording.
You fuck me. Now I've completely lost where I am.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you should focus on what you're doing, like me.
Oh dear. For anyone not looking, I just rolled my eyes. So, yeah. A former neighbour who lived near Christian in Braunschweig.
I would call him Bruckner as opposed to Christian. He's not a mate of yours, is he? He's not a fellow druggy type.
What do you mean fellow druggy type?
No, fellow.
What aspersions are you casting in my direction?
Call him Bruckner.
In northwest Germany, described him as aggressive and abusive towards women. Oh, for fuck's sake, Ronnie. Okay. He constantly, Bild newspaper reported he constantly collected criminal charges for theft, bodily injury, drunkenness in traffic, forged papers. The number of procedures is difficult to calculate. It was a life out of control. So there's a lot of incidental crime, but not so much of a sexual nature at this stage. However, in June 2013, Bruckner was accused of committing more acts of sexual abuse of children. The McCanns appealed to the German public on television for evidence in Madeleine's disappearance, and Bruckner's name cropped up in connection with the case, but German authorities disregarded this lead. Scotland Yard announced in July 2013 that it had new evidence and new witnesses in the case, and they opened a formal investigation into Madeleine's disappearance. During a conversation in an online chat room with an acquaintance in September 2013, Bruckner wrote that he wanted to capture something small and use it for a few days. When his acquaintance pointed out that this was dangerous, Bruckner replied, "Oh, if the evidence is subsequently exterminated," he actually used the term vernichten, which is the term the Nazis used.
What, are you waiting for a reaction?
Yeah, I thought you were going to at least correct my grammar.
What? I did 2 weeks of German in Dusseldorf 40 years ago, actually.
Was that during the war?
40 years ago was not during the war. It was 1984.
Were you a spy?
It was 1984.
Oh, so much has happened that George Orwell would shit a brick about.
Yeah.
Now, when Bruckner was named as a suspect back in June 2020, 25-year-old Nakshil Miftari came forward and claimed that she had had an 18-month relationship with Bruckner beginning sometime in 2014. Soon after speaking with police, the ex-girlfriend feared for her life and went into hiding. She revealed to investigators that she was just 17 years old when she met Bruckner, who was almost 20 years older. Her brother, Michael Miftari, told UK newspaper The Sun that his sister had spoken with police and they told her to keep a low profile. She is in fear of her life and has been told not to speak to anyone by the police. She wouldn't even tell me where she was, and I don't want to know. It's for the best, he added. I've read she is wanted by Interpol, but that is not true. Nakshil knew nothing about Madeleine's disappearance. She was only a little girl herself at the time, no more than 10 years old. One of Bruckner's acquaintances told investigators that he had an underage girlfriend from Kosovo around 2015, adding he always used to beat her. Once she even had strangle marks on her neck. Miss Miftari told police that she was beaten by Bruckner during their relationship and she found child pornography on his computer. Her elder sister, Azra, told a UK newspaper, "He hit my sister. It was horrible for her. The whole family had nothing to do with Bruckner. Only my sister Nakshil had anything to do with him. She was his girlfriend, but she was young and naive. We told her he was too old for her, but she didn't care." A former neighbour came forward and told reporters, "Bruckner was a violent brute. I saw him hit his young girlfriend in the kiosk. He smashed up the place and beat her with his fists." Around the same time, he briefly visits Portugal before returning to Germany.
So this fellow, who I got the impression you were sort of defending the other day, is a known violent paedophile.
I love the way you try and reflect bad vibes on me. I'm defending the fact that there is no evidence against him in the Maddie McCann case. I don't know how many times I have to say that. I'm not defending him as a human being. He is repulsive. However,
but hang on a second. When you say there's no evidence, there's certainly circumstantial evidence that a violent paedophile was in the area, evidenced by his phone records at the time of her disappearance.
I can tell you without a doubt that there is a violent paedophile in your area right now, and in my area right now, and in the area of everyone who listens to this podcast. That doesn't mean that they killed. That doesn't mean that they killed Maddie McCann.
Then who are you going to knock on the door? You're going to knock on the door of the violent paedophile, aren't you? If a child goes missing, isn't that an obvious piece of police investigation?
Water will always find the easiest route.
What's that got to do with anything?
It's not necessarily the fact that the most guilty person is the one what done it.
Of course, I'm not saying they're automatically guilty. I'm saying that's a good starting point for an investigation. That's
Unfortunately, as we know from many other cases, that the police use a good starting point to stitch up anyone in the area and use it as a finishing point as well, without carrying out an investigation.
You just uttering these words are implying that you think he's been stitched up.
I didn't say anything of the kind. I'm just saying You
literally just said it.
See, you're always doing this. You twist whatever I say to make it look as though I am defending the man.
I'm just repeating what you said. I am not
defending anyone, but I am vilifying the police for their level of investigative skills, which are pretty fucking low.
Well, they've never caught you.
I rest my case.
Exactly.
In May 2015... another young girl would go missing, and very soon the press and detectives working the case referred to the victim as Germany's Maddie McCann. Because fuck you, media. Like, focus on the missing girl, not the one that's already been missing for 10 years. That's just fucking awful. 5-year-old Inga Gerich disappeared from a forest during a family outing at Diakonovik Wilhelmshof in Saxony-Anhalt, near the German town of Stendal, on May 2nd, 2015. Inga, along with her mother, Victoria, and her father, Jens Uwe, 2 brothers, 15-year-old Maxim and 13-year-old Julius, and an 8-year-old sister, Freya, so quite a family, had visited a facility of a Protestant charity organisation, which I'm not going to name because I can't. And it was in Stendal, and they went there for their family vacation. So this is quite a religious little setup, I would say. This traditional family holiday would soon turn to tragedy. The family went to the area to visit a friend's apartment complex, and on the very first day, the family had a very good time and the children played together. But on May 2nd, the group decided to have a barbecue. And as the parents prepared everything, the children went to a nearby forest around 100 metres away from the house at 6:30 p.m. to collect firewood and to light a campfire. Around 40 minutes later, the children returned, but 5-year-old Inga was not amongst them. And when they questioned the children about her whereabouts, they explained that she had wandered off from the group and headed back in the direction of the garden. Because the area was considered safe, the parents were sure she would soon return. This is quite disturbing, actually. By 7:40 p.m., the young girl had still not returned, and detectives were called to the scene. I'm not sure I'd be happy with my 5-year-old wandering alone in a forest, no matter how safe it was deemed.
Sorry, when did they go? She set off at what time? 6 o'clock, did you say? Six.
It didn't give us 6:30.
All right, so she'd be missing an hour.
And they returned. The other kids returned at 7:10, and they waited another half an hour.
I mean, 5-year-old.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would not leave a 5-year-old for half an hour in a fucking forest.
Did you ever lose Hannah when she was a child in a supermarket or Selfridges or something?
I didn't do the shopping. That's what your bitch is for.
No, because I remember the.
You're going to let me get away with that?
What, your obvious misogyny? Because it really is panic stations.
Yes, immediately.
I mean, it's not something you wait around half an hour for.
No.
Anyway, I'm not talking about the guilt of these parents. Anyway, it just sounds a bit bizarre. So this poor girl, does she come to a bad end?
The young girl still hadn't returned at 7:40, and detectives were called to the scene. Police dogs failed to pick up the scent of the girl, who had been wearing a butterfly T-shirt, blue jeans, and her hair in 2 plaits. The search eventually expanded to include more than 1,000 officers and volunteers, and they searched the 3,500-hectare forest for 4 days using dogs, helicopters with thermal imaging cameras, searchlights, and loudspeakers. But no evidence was found. The girl had simply vanished. The case made national headlines, and shortly after, a witness came forward with information. The man, a hunter, claimed to have been in the forest on the day that Inga went missing and heard a child scream. He was unable to provide any further details, so nothing further came from this report, but police were now convinced that the young girl had been abducted and began looking into any potential persons of interest. Initially, the prime suspect in this disappearance had been a former security guard, Silvio Schultz, who steadfastly denied any involvement, while police were unable to provide any evidence to the contrary. So in July 2016, Schultz was actually given a life sentence for murdering 2 children, one of them a 4-year-old Bosnian boy snatched from a migrant registration centre the previous year. And the disappearance of young Inga was almost exactly 8 years to the day after Madeline vanished from the Praia de Luz resort while on holiday with her family. An anonymous source reported to police that Bruckner had apparently been in Saxony-Anhalt at the time Inga went missing, and that one day before, his vehicle had been involved in a minor crash on the A2 at a motorway service station in Helmstad, 55 miles from where the Gerrick family lived and close to where the young girl had wandered off. The site of her disappearance was only 48 miles away from where Bruckner lived, on the 5 acres of an abandoned box factory in the isolated village of Neugersleben, southeast of Hanover. According to German newspaper Magdeburg Volksstimme, in February 2016, more than 100 officers descended on this old box factory as part of the investigation into the Inga Gerrick case. In a bid to locate the young girl's body, forensic officers dug holes at the property, and although no human remains were found, they did locate a USB device hidden under animal bones. When police checked the memory stick, they found it contained a secret stash of child pornography. In addition to the child porn, investigators also found children's clothes for girls in a trailer on the property, despite Bruckner having no family. On the basis of this evidence, he was arrested and charged for possessing indecent images of child sex abuse, but he was never implicated in the disappearance of Inga. And with no evidence connecting him to the crime, this case was also closed after 4 weeks. He was sentenced to 15 months in prison for sexual abuse of a child in the act of creating and possessing child pornographic material. And in April 2017, Inga's mother said, "My feeling tells me that she is still alive," while Mr. Gerrick said, "I still have hope that she will be found, but the hope she will come back alive goes to zero for me." There still remains a €25,000 reward for information about what happened to Inga. And because
So that poor girl was never found either.
Never found.
So it's not really coincidental at all that this fellow Bruckner just happened to have been near both disappearances.
Of course it's a coincidence. People go missing all the time.
No, they don't.
They do. An amazing amount of people go missing.
Well, no, I realise that, but generally speaking, 98% of them are people, teenagers leaving, and they come back 3 days later. But sorry, are you saying that 3 and 5-year-olds disappear all the time in Europe?
Yes, quite a lot. Do you remember Ben Neeson?
When did that happen? Sardinia.
Happened in Greece, I think.
In Greece, was it?
Fuck me, it must be nearly 40 years ago now.
All right, so that's 3 examples. But anyway, all right, so you don't think it's an amazing coincidence. So carry on then.
They're investigating, they're not finding. You can't say it's any more than a coincidence until you've got something that tells you it's no longer a coincidence.
Well, it's certainly I'm not saying it's enough to go to court, but it's certainly circumstantial.
There's circumstantial evidence to show that I killed Princess Diana.
No, there isn't.
There is. I was in the country at the time.
Well, do you have a record of killing princesses? I mean, anyway, carry on. I don't want this to drag out for another episode. You've got 14 minutes to wrap it up.
So because of all the similarities between Inga and Madeline McCann, the two cases are considered similar, with both young girls being of similar appearance and would both vanish while their parents were in close proximity. In May 2017, Bruckner is free again, and on the 10th anniversary of the disappearance of Madeline McCann, he was watching a TV news report on the case in a German bar in the company of a friend. This associate would later come forward to report to police that Bruckner had implicated himself in the crime by confessing to his part in her abduction. He is alleged to have told him that he knew all about what happened to her. Shortly after, this man reported the incident to police and told German investigators a report came on the TV about the anniversary of Madeline's disappearance, and he said something to suggest that he knew what happened. Police were unable to confirm the incident, adding that he also allegedly showed a video of himself raping a woman. And this video led to an investigation that in 2019 led to his conviction of the rape of a tourist in the Algarve around 2005. And this is what brought him back into the frame for Madeline. Bruckner once again travelled to Portugal in June 2017, but he was soon extradited back to Germany. And this was in response to a request by German authorities over a case of child sexual abuse, of which Bruckner was still the prime suspect. At this time, Scotland Yard said his name was already known to its investigation, but he didn't become a suspect until after information was received as a direct consequence of a 2017 appeal. In December, Germany's BKA received 2 tips from Scotland Yard in connection with the McCann case, one of which directed them towards Bruckner. An informant had come forward, most likely a former associate from his time in Portugal, and claimed to have recognised him from the police sketches. Investigators with the BKA's Department SO25 set up a special commission that began working on the case with the utmost secrecy. In relation to the child abuse charges that he was facing, he was found guilty and sentenced by the district court to 15 months imprisonment for the offence. The public prosecutors...
What? 15 months for child abuse?
can you say? The sentencing is absolutely random. The public prosecutor's office in Braunschweig continued to investigate the McCann case because Bruckner's last official residence was located there. Days before his expected release on August 31st, 2018, German prosecutors attempted to keep him in prison by invoking the prior 21-month suspended sentence from the 2011 drug dealing charge. In order to impose this older sentence, German lawyers were required to ask the judiciary in Portugal, who had extradited Bruckner back to Germany, for their consent. However, the German authorities had failed to mention the older verdict for the drug dealing in their initial extradition request, meaning that they could not ultimately punish Bruckner for the old offence. According to local media, German prosecutors had been too late in their approach to Portugal, and in September 2018 he walked free. He then travelled to the Netherlands on September 18. He gets about a bit. And then later on to Italy. He was finally arrested by Italian police in Milan on September 27, 2018, and returned to Germany.
Why was he arrested?
I don't know. There would be many questions asked as to why it had taken 4 weeks for Germany to obtain a European arrest warrant. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, because he was back in Europe, I guess. European arrest warrant. In 2019, a witness came forward with information concerning a serious crime that Bruckner had committed some 14 years previously. The man reported to police about an incident that occurred in May 2017 and went on to describe that he and Bruckner had been sitting in a bar and were watching a report on the 10th anniversary of the disappearance of Maddie McCann. And he said that he knew what happened. It seems to be a repeat of something I read earlier.
Oh, no. You're going to have to do some editing. I know you don't like editing, Andy.
Another former associate of Bruckner's came forward and told police about an incident that occurred sometime in 2006 to 2007, shortly before the disappearance of Maddie McCann. And this witness gave a statement about footage of an attack on a video camera found at Bruckner's home. The man said he had broken into the home while Bruckner was absent, serving a short prison sentence for diesel theft. After stealing a video camera from the house, he said he found footage of a pensioner-aged woman bound and blindfolded and being raped and whipped. And this is the old woman we were talking about.
Yeah.
The witness said the footage showed the perpetrator take off his own mask, and it is then that he recognised him as his friend and the owner of the house, which he was burgling. So nice friends he has. He said to investigators, "Then the man sat on the bed and pulled the mask off his face. Then I thought, this can't be." The witness would go on to describe another film which showed a younger woman detained in the house, tied to a wooden beam while naked. He said that once again, the occupant of the house was visible in the footage. In August 2019, Bruckner is arrested based on this testimony and charged with the September 2005 rape of the 72-year-old American widow at the Casa Jacaranda villa in the Praia de Luz resort. At his trial, it emerged that with one victim, he used a pair of swimming goggles with the lenses painted grey so that she wouldn't be able to identify him. Along with the witness testimony, it was a single hair that proved to be the key piece of evidence that ensured his conviction for the rape charge, and he was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment. The sentence has not yet been imposed because of an ongoing appeal. However, Bruckner is currently serving an unrelated sentence for drug trafficking in Kiel.
So hang on, he's been... he was eventually prosecuted for the rape of this elderly tourist.
Yes, but not
but it
at
only
the time.
happened 15 years later or something, or
Yes.
10 years later or whatever. And he was found guilty, which he's now appealing against.
Yes.
All right, yeah.
It was on June 4th, 2020, when German authorities first revealed that Bruckner was a person of interest in the McCann case, and German prosecutors announced, "We are assuming the girl is dead. With the suspect, we are talking about a sexual predator who has already been convicted of crimes against little girls and is already serving a long sentence." It was the night of May 3rd, 2007, when a young girl was taken between 9:10 and 10 p.m. When police checked Bruckner's cell phone history, they found that calls were made during that period of time in Praia de Luz. The day after her disappearance...
Oh, hang on a second. Hang on. So that answers your question about near.
It answers it to a degree.
He's in the resort. Fucking hell, Andy, honestly. God, dear. You're still convinced it was the parents because of your gut feeling, are you?
There's too many things for me that I'm not able to dismiss. The day after her disappearance...
But you are willing to dismiss that a convicted serial child paedophile... I'm willing
to listen
to violence is less likely to have done it than the parents.
I'm willing to listen and look at any evidence that someone can produce to prove that he did it, and they cannot.
Well, what are you talking about? They can't obviously produce any concrete evidence like the poor body of Madeleine McCann, but there's plenty of circumstantial evidence, whereas you're willing to believe, because that's how you started this podcast, that you thought it was the parents that did it.
Yes,
without any even circumstance. Do they have a history, the parents,
of killing their children?
Of killing their children?
Yes.
I mean, it's just absurd. Anyway, carry on, just so we can get to conclusion. God, dear. Even your cats are leaving you. I can see in the background. God, dear.
The day after the disappearance, he suspiciously cancelled his car registration. I don't understand why that's suspicious. You're selling a car. According to Spiegel, the German federal crime police officer distributed photographs of a Volkswagen Transporter van that he might have been driving on the day of the crime.
Which crime are we talking about? Madeleine's crime now?
Yes.
Yeah.
It also released the number of the mobile phone the suspect was using that night to call a stranger from Praia de Luz. Investigators believe it was conspicuous that shortly after his return from Portugal, he began boasting about a sudden financial windfall. Friends remember him telling them that he had found cash in a pile of clothes, large sums of money, after breaking into a home in the Algarve. In addition to a mobile home, he also used the money to buy a derelict factory property in the state of Saxony-Anhalt, which would later be searched in connection with the Inga case. German investigators were now investigating Bruckner over his involvement in the disappearances of two young girls, and have developed their own theory of what happened to Madeleine McCann and Bruckner's alleged role in her abduction.
So what they're suspecting is that he abducted Madeleine and then sold her to his accomplice. But I mean,
it's a stretch because, you know, if you abduct a 3 or 4 year old child, off the top of your head, how many people could you sell that child to?
Well, what do you mean? You don't think he might have associated with other like-minded people?
I don't think he had the criminal...
It's not like you going out trying to sell a 3-year-old. This fellow's a convicted paedophile.
I don't think he had the criminal nous to actually orchestrate a crime where kidnapping and the sale of a young child
based
to a wealthy someone who's got a bag of cash waiting for a child.
Your mind works, Andy, it's just
the way yours works is quite incredible.
No, mine is completely logical and straightforward.
He is basically a petty criminal.
What are you talking about? You think paedophilia is petty?
I'm not talking about his sex crimes. I'm talking about his theft and his fraud and his forgeries. It's
exactly, and his drug dealing.
Yes, it's
from
petty
the age
crime.
of 17 or 14.
It's petty crime.
What are you talking about? How can you differentiate?
I'm just saying it's very difficult to have someone in your circle of friends who wants to buy a child. It's not a normal thing.
It's difficult in my circle of friends, or possibly even yours.
It's more probable in your circle of friends because the upper classes, my boy, have been known to deal in human beings.
You've convinced me, Andy. You've convinced me.
Years.
This fellow is completely innocent. He's just a petty criminal, and it was obviously the parents that did it. You've convinced me. I'm sure all the listeners will be convinced as well.
This is a very divisive case, and you're welcome to your own opinion, as am I, and so is everybody else. But the parents are not beyond reasonable doubt here at all.
All right, so you doubt the story of him selling the child, even though he did actually have a windfall of cash, and he was in the area at the time.
He's a thief.
Yeah.
Thieves always have windfalls of cash.
That's right. He's just a petty criminal, Andy. He is. He's just a petty criminal. It sounds like he spent most of his life in prison. He's just a petty criminal, apart from the odd sexual offence, the odd rape of pensioners, the odd abduction of children.
But then he's definitely guilty if that's the case. He definitely
I just wouldn't describe him as a petty criminal. This fellow sounds evil to me.
He is a monster.
There we go.
I'm not denying
that.
I'm just saying that there's no fucking evidence.
No,
to put
you're right.
Absolutely anywhere near this case.
What do you mean he was in the resort?
All right, that's the only evidence you have. Hundreds of other people were also in the resort, including the parents and seven of the parents' friends.
Hundreds of other people weren't convicted paedophiles.
That is not enough to go on. I'm sorry. That is not good enough for a conviction.
It's obviously not enough to go on because the fellow's never been convicted of the crime, but it's enough to raise one's suspicion, is the point I'm making.
We're arguing the same point over and over again. I'm telling you, I'm not defending him. I'm just saying there is not enough evidence or any evidence to convict him.
Your words defend him, describing him as a petty criminal.
He is a petty criminal.
That's defending him. He's not. He's a monster.
He's a petty monster.
Please come to some sort of conclusion.
I can't while you argue every fucking sentence.
I have to because you talk bollocks.
No, you talk bollocks. Your mouth is shaped like a penis with two bollocks hanging down your chin. You're talking bollocks. Now, similarly, they believe Bruckner responsible for the disappearance of Inga Gericke and believe that he knew an employee of the Dianoni facility, where she vanished. The random way in which he apparently chose victims for his sex drive and the brutality he apparently subjected them to was another reason why investigators began to look into other crimes with a possible connection to Bruckner. It soon emerged that German detectives were investigating Bruckner over the disappearance of a young boy, 6-year-old René Hasse from Elsdorf in Germany. He was on holiday with his family in Alizur, just 25 miles from Praia de Luz in the Algarve, when he vanished on June 21st, 1996. So this is even earlier. The infant was last seen running towards the sea on a crowded Portuguese beach before his mother lost sight of him. Police found only his clothes by the water. The boy's grandparents had previously insisted he would never have wandered into the sea by himself and that his footprints stopped in the middle of the sand. The boy's father, Andreas, told the German newspaper Kölner Stadt Anzeiger that there could be a connection with Bruckner. He said the BKA contacted him for the first time in 20 years and said they were re-investigating the case. He was a lovely boy, my first child, and I never got over what happened, his father said. Andreas Hasse has pointed out the similarities between his son's disappearance and that of Maddie McCann. Just look at both children and you can see how handsome René is and how beautiful Madeleine looks, and they were almost the same age. I strongly believe both children were taken. There is no doubt of it. During their family walk, Renee ran ahead on the crowded beach to go into the sea and was never seen again. They were convinced he went into the water, Andrea said, but I know in my heart he didn't. I don't know. I mean, his clothes were found on the beach and the boy was gone. It seems like he might have gone into the water to me. I don't want to...
More of your gut feelings.
Well, there's not much...
So Bruckner being on the beach, it doesn't raise your suspicions.
He wasn't
at all.
On the beach.
I thought he was. I
no,
thought
this
that's
is
what you said.
This is just a very sad and tragic father trying to put together some kind of feasible story as to why his son just disappeared.
Right.
And it's tragic, but there's very little substance to this.
There's very little substance to most of what's occurred in the last 2 hours of our podcast.
An expert showed that even if he was drowned, the waves would have brought his body back, but they never found him. He also added the police investigation in Portugal wasn't thorough, and I see the similarities with what happened to Madeleine. When Rene vanished, Portuguese police said that he had drowned, but failed to carry out any proper searches of the sea for 2 days. Portuguese police kept saying, we don't have kidnappings here. It's not a big city. It's a holiday destination. But they were wrong. 2 children taken from there, and who knows how many others. When I think that Rene and Madeleine may have ended up in the hands of that paedophile, it makes me sick. He is a convicted paedophile and always will be. And those tendencies never leave.
The end.
Not far. German detectives said they are now working on the assumption that Madeleine is dead and are investigating 43-year-old Bruckner on suspicion of a murder. Prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters announced that they have evidence concerning how the young child died, but not enough to charge Bruckner. They're also, if they have evidence saying how she died, they must have a body, surely?
Why?
Well, how do you say someone's died using your mind? Is it telepathic?
Well, maybe they found a rope in his car or something and they suspect he strangled her with it. I mean, what do you mean? Or maybe they found a gun that he shot her with. I mean, what do you mean? That's suspicious.
That's not evidence. They're talking evidence. They say they have evidence showing how she died. That's not evidence, a rope. I could have a rope. You've got a tow rope in your car. Is that evidence? Come on, you can't just even argue that point. If evidence is evidence. They claim they have evidence concerning how the young child died, but not enough to charge Bruckner. They are also refusing to release further details that could potentially compromise any future prosecution, while British police are still treating the investigation as a missing persons case. It also emerged that Bruckner had been flagged as a key suspect 7 years previously, but the report was apparently ignored by German authorities. The Metropolitan Police admitted that Bruckner had been among 600 people previously considered potentially significant to the McCann inquiry. Wolters said, we think our suspect has done more crimes, possibly against British, Irish or American people. All these people are asked to call us so we can solve these cases. Soon, a 4th case from the summer of '96 was being connected to Bruckner. 16-year-old Carola Tietze vanished on the morning of July 5th, 1996, while on holiday with her parents at the Flemish resort of De Haan in West Flanders. This occurred only a few weeks after the disappearance of Renee Hasse. On the morning she went out for a walk towards the beach, but she never returned. It wasn't until July 11 that the severely mutilated body of the German teenager was found in the sand dunes. The public prosecutor's office in West Flanders, Brussels, announced that they were investigating whether 43-year-old Bruckner could be involved. In the days before her murder, Carola was reportedly in contact with a German man, and the pair were allegedly seen together at a disco. Despite a police sketch of the suspect, attempts to locate the man failed. There's still quite a lot that is not known about Bruckner, including his whereabouts during several of the crimes to which he is being connected. Maybe because they happened over a 30-year period and nobody could remember where they were. And so the BKA requested help from any possible witnesses or associates of Bruckner so they could fill any gaps in knowledge about what they knew about him and what they suspect to be true about him. Profilers of the BKA have compiled a report on Bruckner, whom they describe as a psychopath who is capable of anything and a man who, nevertheless, or precisely because of this, had a charismatic aura and impressed the people around him. Most people felt exploited, taken for a ride, or cheated afterwards. They paint a picture of a manipulative narcissist who could appear charming but was only trying to get money he would never pay back or sexual gratification. He was very engaging, dominant, and sociable. He seemed like a hopeless dreamer who always had big plans, said one companion. I knew he was up to no good, drugs and such, but I had no idea that he sexually abused children. Apart from the money, he was mostly interested in sex. Officials found numerous references to his sexual preferences on hard drives, and violence often played a role. The investigators also discovered child porn. Witnesses testifying in the regional court during his trial claimed that they had seen sex videos with animals and also ones in which he raped women, but none of these videos were actually ever produced. One former companion said it was no secret that the police were always after him, and another former girlfriend had regularly called the police because Bruckner had allegedly beaten her. On June 14, 2020, it was reported that detectives asked Bruckner's ex-girlfriends for notes that he had written to them because they believe he may have written letters that mentioned Maddie McCann. Portuguese police continued to probe whether her body was dumped in a well near Bruckner's old home in the south of Portugal after she went missing. Weekly Portuguese newspaper Sol did not claim that full searches of the wells had been carried out. By late June 2020, Bruckner's lawyer, Friedrich Fulcher, told German broadcaster RTL that the convicted paedophile would fight any false statements made about him regarding the McCann case. Mr. Fulcher also said that there were attempts to protect the 43-year-old German national from possible attacks from other inmates. So, we're going to wrap this up. The evidence against Bruckner is largely circumstantial. However, given his criminal history of sexual attacks against children and the fact that he was in the same area where Maddie McCann went missing,
the same resort
means that his status as prime suspect is not without foundation. It has, however, been 18 years since the girl went missing from Praia de Luz resort, and there would be little, if any, physical evidence left that could link Bruckner to the crime. Prosecutors believe that they know how Madeline died, but they still have no idea concerning the whereabouts of her remains. Finding the body would be the only way Bruckner could be implicated in the murder unless new and incontrovertible evidence emerges. With renewed investigations in 4 unsolved cases, the uncertainty could end for the parents of Inga Gehrig, Rini Hassi and Carola Titze in much the same way as for the parents of Madeline. Bruckner's arrest brings no comfort, no hope, but a tiny prospect of truth and of certainty. That, though, is more than they have had up until now. But I feel that they are not going to get it from Bruckner. That brings us to the end of this fucking argumentative series of episodes about Madeline McCann.
It deserves to be argumentative.
No, you're right, it does, because, as I said, it is a very divisive case, and everyone who listens to this will have their own opinion about whether or not police have looked anywhere near the right direction.
But I mean, just as a matter of interest, so we've done 2 hours. You've read all about this. Sorry, you've not read, but you've been talking about this fellow Bruckner and all of the crimes, and you are still
Are we
convinced it was
still
the
going to go
parents.
down that way?
No, I'm just asking.
I'm convinced that the police are flogging a dead horse with Bruckner because they cannot pin it on him after all this time and all this money spent chasing
all right,
him.
no, but that's a completely different question. So what I mean, I agree with that. The likelihood of them actually proving beyond reasonable doubt that he did it is very thin. It happened 18 years ago. I'm simply asking you if you still feel that the parents are more likely to have done it.
I have very serious questions about the parents.
Okay, fine. You see, I find it quite interesting because this is unwittingly, this is evidential of what's happening in the wider world at the moment. That people, and I'm not necessarily criticizing you, but if you see what's going on in America, what the politicians and such like are saying in America, where it's contrary to all of the evidence that they can be provided with, that they're in knowledge of, and yet they stick with their opinion, even though it's contrarian to all of the evidence. And unfortunately, I mean, there's two of us sitting here, and some people are going to believe me, and some people are going to believe you. And that's what happens in the wider world at the moment. It's like it's sort of black and white, whereas there's all sorts of bits in between, as it were.
Well,
but people just can't be bothered.
I told you my main sticking points is that
I completely.
I don't like the fact that they left children unattended as norm, and I certainly don't like the fact that they seem to have stuck together, whereas people have broken up. I mean, can you imagine spending 18 years with someone and never letting it enter your head that it was their fault that your child has disappeared?
No. I mean, we don't have to rehash it all, but just think of it. I mean, let's just in 30 seconds summarize the fact that you think they were bad parents because they left their kid alone unattended, as did all of the other parents in the group, by the way.
Also bad parents.
And the fact they stuck together, whereas you would have assumed that a couple would have split up. So those two elements are also, in your mind, equal weight to a fellow who is a convicted paedophile
and violent criminal. You
said
this was going to be a 30-second.
It is. That's it. I've finished. You give those equal weight. Well, in fact, you don't. You give more weight to the bad parenting.
I think they should have been investigated further. I think if the police had done their job properly on the night of the disappearance...
Emblematic, that was the word I was looking for. Emblematic of a bigger problem these days, that people can't come to what I feel are clearly logical conclusions and contrary to what they're being fed by liars and charlatans.
What Trump tells you about the media.
That's what I worry about, that people are willing to just believe these people without referring to evidence.
Anyway, it's not our job.
Thank God,
it's not
1
our
hour,
job.
20 minutes. Oh my God.
I know, and I'm busy today. I need to get out of here.
What do you mean, don't be stupid?
I'm helping Teresa and her boyfriend do something.
Move.
Not move as such, but he needs to move his motorbike to another place. So
he's got a motorbike?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and unfortunately, he can't ride it anywhere at the moment. And he's going to store it.
It's got snow.
He's going to store it at one of his friends' places, but he can't rent a trailer because neither of them have a Swedish driving license. So,
is that right? You need a Swedish driving license to rent a trailer
or a car.
Very sensible.
So I'm going to have to take that responsibility.
Can we do something slightly easier next week where it can be a bit of a laugh between us rather than a shouting match between us?
I like a shouting match. So shut up.
So do I, but now I've got to check it that you're not editing me out of all of this.
Oh, don't check. It's fine.
Exactly.
But anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. No one's ever going to agree on this case until something finally happens, but don't hold your breath. Tune in next week when we'll have a more light-hearted Strange Stuff podcast, no
Thank
doubt.
God for that.
It couldn't get any darker. And don't forget, keep following us, keep listening, tell your friends as well, because it would be nice if we had a larger audience.
Indeed.
If you want to hear more on the murdery bits, then you can go.
After this, they probably got no interest in listening to you.
Well, funnily enough, me and Richard don't scream at each other over the murders.
No, because you're both lost down the rabbit hole.
We're both on the same page.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost always.
Yeah.
So you can find those murdery bits at patreon.com/strange stuff podcast, where there's lots of free episodes. And if you want to buy us a coffee or buy us a beer, you can get a lot more. Anyway, have yourselves a strange week. Don't go kidnapping any children on holiday, and try not to be in the same area as anyone else who's kidnapping children, because you will be prosecuted. See you next week.
Cheerio.